Good morning, Doug.
Hello.
It's a beautiful day in Carmel, Indiana. I was getting ready to say Fishers. It's what is it tomorrow, Amanda? The Artomobilia is in Carmel, Indiana tomorrow. If you're a car fan, you ought to make a trip out here. If you get here early enough, you can probably park in Gimbal's parking lot. You just won't be able to get out.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
You'd have to get here pretty early. But
Yeah.
Carmel does a great job at putting on an event. They've got guys out working, gals out working, putting signs up, blocking streets off, making people aware. And they've really done a nice job.
Well, it is kind of cool to sit right here on Rangeline Road and watch things unfold on a regular basis. Good job finding this place, Doug.
That was fun. That was fun. When was the last time you bought something that you hadn't seen before?
Well, I mean, for over $20.
That was the story. Is I was driving back from Louisville and I got an alert that there was a place for sale on Rangeline Road, and it wasn't this place, but it led to this place, and he bought it without seeing it. It's pretty sweet.
I had to trust Doug, and that's what we buy wisdom, and that wisdom can be right here in your own hometown. So thank you, Doug. So today, I did a little more. Last week, we were talking about how we failed to communicate. And today, while I was traveling last week, there was a lot of news that happened that I thought was monumental news. And so that's why I thought maybe I would direct this in a different way than a normal week at this thing. And I was going to show you a screen here. Put this guy here too. So what do you think this guy is?
Well, I have 5 of those in my backyard this morning.
How close do they get to you?
I would say we were 30 feet.
Okay.
But we were inside and camouflaged by brick walls and glass and tried to keep the dog from barking so we could enjoy him.
So this particular one was as close as you and I are right now.
Oh, that's great.
It was have you been that close to one like before where you're that close and you're going, huh, this is really interesting. Has that happened to you or?
Only at a tree stand.
Oh, okay. It's happened to me a number of times at Ritchie Woods, and that one was about a month ago. But yesterday, I discovered truth, and I went. There's this one little path I went down, and I got down there, and there was a ruckus going on, and it was a mom and her baby were playing around. I guess I didn't see it until I saw them see me, and the ruckus stopped like that.
Okay.
And they were probably 30 feet away, but that's pretty close. Like a deer,
yeah,
is a legitimate force. And then the mom started going like this, and my heart started racing.
Yeah.
And that was truth right then. I'm like,
yeah.
So I turned and looked behind me, and I was between her and her other baby.
Oh, okay.
And so I got out of there.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was thinking of truth. I mean, nobody had to say a word to me. I knew it was time to clear out of Dodge.
Yeah.
But our friend Bob Warren, he would tell me that one of his favorite expressions of truth was a lighthouse, because you can argue with it all you want, but it's just what it is, right? There's no alternative. Like if you just keep going towards it and and try to argue with it, you lose.
You're gonna see it one way or the other.
Yeah, and I think truth is just universal. And so I was thinking about it with regard to our industry and the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. Are you familiar with that one at all?
Only from studies in the past.
Yeah, and there
were a couple big ones right around then.
Yeah, what that one did is prior to that point in time, there was never a regulation that you had to disclose what your business is going on. Like Gimbal we don't disclose to people what Gimbal does because we're not publicly traded. But if you're going to invest money, you have the right to know what's going on in the business. And so all the stuff that happened through all the 1800s and into the 1900s up until the stock market crash, there was no real truth in the explanation of it.
Buyer beware.
Yeah, yeah. And so how they managed it then was that the stock exchanges might have had some disclosure requirements. The states might have had it. But I think
Reputation.
yeah, you're right. What do you think about that? Like, is that even a deal anymore?
I think so.
Yeah,
It keeps me coming back.
yeah, yeah. And I'm kind of a believer that that's more important than even anything else. Is
I
that
agree.
if I'm going to go to a hotel or a restaurant, I'm probably going to check the reputation before I go on. I mean, that's what we try to be truthful in what we do. And if we screw up, we try to make it known to you, but our reputation matters because it's what keeps us in business. Yeah. And so, when I was thinking about that is that truth is really critical to capitalism. I don't know if you have any examples of what that looks like.
No, I don't.
Yeah, so I don't know the numbers, but when there was a stock exchange, like a physical stock exchange, there were literally thousands and thousands of transactions every single day. And they were on written pieces of paper. And everything happened so fast, but at the end of every day, it's squared up. Like there was like every transaction had a buyer and a seller. And if I was a stockbroker at that time and I called you to buy 100 shares of IBM, it was a verbal contract between you and me. And that made its way to the stock exchange, and all these things just relied on tons and tons of honesty.
Yeah, and when there was a mismatch, there was someone who carried it.
Yeah, yeah. And if you, what they called in the day, DK'd me, didn't know me, then I was responsible for that transaction. So honesty and truth are a big deal in capitalism, a lot of other things. I noticed, I think it was yesterday, New York City, or no, New York State approved a retail law that requires major retailers to have a panic button
Really? Like panic for what?
for criminal activity inside there.
What are they gonna do with that? Who's gonna come to the rescue?
Well, that's a lot of regulations, right? Like a lot of regulations, nobody's going to enforce them. But what I was thinking is the dishonesty of that was it's their job. We pay taxes for you to protect, like you should be protecting the store, right? But in the picture where they had that article, it showed the shelves were all covered with like glass or plastic where you couldn't even get to the shelves, which a lot of us that live maybe outside of the coast don't even know that's what's going on.
That was my last Wayne Reed experience a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty
You
dishonest.
didn't even get a toothbrush.
Right. I mean, I see some of that at Walmart in Fishers or Carmel, but it's the honesty is part of what that is. And so I think cultures are just built on trust. And the more that we can flourish in trust, the more that we can work through that, I think the healthier our culture is.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a book a few years ago. I can't remember who wrote it, but the title's Boundaries. And there's a great section in there on trust that talks about, hey, do you know what you believe? And are you okay with yourself? Do you have to tell everyone what you believe? Or are there some defining lines that you're not going to cross, you're not going to go through, but it's just the core of who you are. And when those things are broken, you have to have a discussion.
Right.
And I think that's one of the challenges is there's just not a lot of discussion.
And that's kind of what I was thinking about. How do you, like, I wanted to talk about this today, but also, can you do anything about it? That's like talking about it is just cheap because it's just a waste of everybody's time. But what I think has happened, this is just my opinion, is that none of us are really, if you put a spectrum of ideas out there, we're people, humanity is all across that spectrum of ideas. And what the internet has done is pulled us to the ends, like made polar opposites for a lot of different reasons. And it's kind of disingenuous, but if you don't know it's happening, it's affecting you, which affects your family, your friends, everything that you're about. And it's a relatively new idea. Like, I don't know, do you think it's been 10 years or 5 years or?
I don't think I've totally adopted it either. You know, I see some of our sons, they're on several different social media platforms, and we have this discussion often, like how many do you need to show off what you got or what you're doing?
Yeah,
And can you imagine, like, especially for, there's a lot of people out there just getting notifications popped up on their phone every second that somebody does something amongst their 2,000 connections. And so your brain just doesn't have time to catch up.
right, right. And your brain is kind of part of the problem, is because your brain can get reprogrammed, right? Like, you may not even know the subtlety of the lies that get into your brain. And so it's kind of a big deal. For, I think, even mental health is part of the big deal, because you can get pulled, biased away from ideas and get you wound up about things that you may or may not have any control. But if you were to, I think if you were to think of all of humanity in a spectrum of their beliefs and things, there's probably like pockets of ideas that people believe, but like, there's no way you and I believe the same things. Right, right. And so we're going to be on a spectrum of different beliefs on different ideas. But what the internet does is it kind of pulls you apart, because they sell things. Like the old school media used to be, if it bleeds, it leads. But with the internet, it's trying to sell advertising, it's trying to sell stuff, and you're the product.
Yeah, imagine if the Native Americans and the Pilgrims had the internet, like. Would there be like more like division, or would they be coming together? I don't know, but I think that's kind of what I go towards, is we all come from different backgrounds and different uniquenesses and different ways of thinking, but for the first time ever, like a Native American could express what they're thinking and the Pilgrim could read it.
Right, right. And frankly, it's not helpful for me to express what I'm thinking, because I could be thinking wrong. Right, like I like for you all, if we're wrong, that you would tell us that, right? Because the old saying is, the truth will set you free, which implies you have a lie in here that is putting you in bondage. And the lies that are going on in our culture today are literally killing people, maiming and killing people.
I didn't know what gaslighting was.
Yeah.
I've heard that term on talk radio shows and in media and stuff. And um, I'm an artificial intelligence fan. I'm an AI fan. I know there's like, it's not truth,
Right.
but you have to ask really good questions and get good at clarifying. And I'm really enjoying that exercise. But I was able to find one of the roots to this gaslighting term. Have you found it?
No, I was wondering, I was gonna look that up because I wanted to talk about gaslighting, but
Yeah.
how did the word come to be? You see what I brought here today? I don't have gas, I just have LED light.
There might be some type of gas. I don't know. I'd have to get my son Warner to tell me, but yeah. So there was this movie or play or something like that in the 30s called Gaslight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was and the people who come up with the term gaslight, and good for you for knowing about this movie or play. That's impressive. But the idea behind this play was, there was a husband who was trying to get his wife to basically go insane. And so he would turn down the gas lights, the lighting in their house, and it'd get dimmer. And he'd be like, no, it's not dim. This is the way it always is.
That's evil, isn't it?
That's just straight up evil.
Yeah.
That's straight up evil. And we enjoy being entertained by that stuff.
Yeah. How I defined it, because those that are my age or older may not even know the term. How I defined it personally was, gaslighting is when someone bold-faced lies to you so boldly that it causes you to doubt yourself. Or if you don't doubt yourself, well, the other thing it might do is that if it comes at you so aggressively, you may not doubt yourself, but you might lose the confidence to tell the emperor that he has no clothes on. You might.
Well, you won't know.
Well, you might just be intimidated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the gaslighting is evil, in my opinion. Like, it's just dishonest, and it's just lies. And the fact that it is going on makes it really important for you and me and all of you watching to come to understand what is truth in life, and to have a discerning mind to not buy into everything that comes across the path. But I was thinking about how the internet biases us and really censors things that we may not even know that's going on, because we we all have a thing called confirmation bias, that whatever my belief system is, I tend to believe it's true and not doubt it. Like, that's confirmation bias. And probably the most aggressive form of that would have been my childhood Christianity, was what my parents told me was true, and I believed it. But then as I started maturing, I realized there's contradictions in here. And in order for me to sort through it, I had to stop, turn off the noise of what I was hearing, and concentrate and think about something different, that was different than really what I was being, I think, gaslit as a child. And it wasn't, sometimes not even
So
intentional.
are you right?
I know I'm closer than I was. Yeah. Like, God is big.
Like if I ask your mom and dad, are you right?
Yeah. I would think they would have told you they were wrong. Yeah, I think they got to that point because we had honest
They got to
conversation.
that. That's cool.
Yeah, I think that's how you get there, is you have honest conversations. But that was probably as intense of gas. Like, that was coming through a system at me. It wasn't coming through an individual person. But to come to, because I got to that point, it's like, I'm gonna throw out this whole thing and ignore it all because it didn't make any sense. It was so contradictory. And I think that's what gaslighting does. It wears you out and you just quit thinking about it. But I went the other direction. I went head on at it.
I mean, religion would probably be one of the most sensitive topics to talk about.
Yeah,
Politics probably next.
yeah. And the religion, I just took the whole decade of the 90s. I wouldn't talk about it to people, because what I was learning and thinking was so contradictory to what everybody else was saying. I didn't want to have arguments about it or anything. I just had to think through it and search. I was just searching the Bible to look for contradictions on it. But that was an example for me. It was really hard because it forced this brain to kind of crank around. And you know, when you do have confirmation bias or prejudices, you have to kind of humble yourself that I could be wrong. Yeah, and in today's culture with gaslighting, I would say the more arrogant somebody comes at you, the more I believe they're lying to me.
I think it's kind of even a weights and balances. Like, there's tons of information over here, little information on this opinion. So the masses must be right. For example, like you asked me, have I seen Mark Zuckerberg's letter?
Yeah.
And I didn't even know like who the letter was written to. And so you provided it for me, but before I looked at what you provided, I thought, okay, I'm gonna go on the treasure hunt and see if I can find this.
Could you?
And so I had to, I started off on Bing, and I hate Bing. Sorry, guys.
Come on, Microsoft, make it better.
And I started off on Bing, and basically what I got was lists of a whole bunch of great opinions on the letter. And then I thought, okay, I'll switch to Google. Same thing, lists of a whole bunch of opinions on the letter. I went to Chat GPT, and I went to the souped up version. There's a souped up version out there. And it gave a very nice summary and what I thought would be a link to the letter, but it wasn't. It was a link to another opinion of the letter. And so do you know where I landed and finally found it?
I do, because it's probably where I found it. X?
Twitter. X. Yeah.
Yeah.
I found it on X. Very interesting. That has actually been a great source of information for me if I'm willing to take the time to discover it. And it used to be the cesspool.
Yes. And why that's there are 4 events that happened last week while I was out of town, or within the last week or so, that caused me to want to have this dialogue today. And I put them in my notes here in sequential order. So I'll talk about the Zuckerberg letter. The first one, because I'm of the opinion that the Democratic and Republican Party, they are not what they were when I graduated from college. They both shifted quite a bit to the left, which is, it is what it is. So it's not like it's not your mom and dad's party, right? Like it's something different than what you probably were. And so to pick a party to go towards is probably a false way of thinking. What you need to, I think, do is consider issues that are important to you rather than what you think your party's issues are. So anyway, the first one was Robert Kennedy, which frankly, I mostly over the years had voted Republican, but Kennedy is a Democratic name, right? And he was hooking up with Donald Trump, and I thought, this is weird. What does he have to say? So I went and listened to his speech to see what he had to say, and I'm like, there's several of his ideas that I didn't know about. I didn't know anything about the health things that he was talking about.
He's a pretty interesting guy.
Yeah, and so what he was saying forced me to think.
Yeah.
And so, but what was happening to Kennedy was he was being censored himself. He was being held back, and I think gaslit too. And so I'm like, okay, that happened that last week. The next thing was Pavel Durov. Do you know Pavel Durov?
That's the one that's really caught my eye and I've been paying attention to. And so he was the founder of Telegraph, which is kind of like the Mark Zuckerberg of the rest of the world.
Yeah. He lives in Dubai.
Yeah, and he was recently pulled off the grid when he visited France.
Well, he was baited to France, right?
Well, I don't know that.
That's what I read.
Yeah, I
He
don't
was
know that,
baited
but
to France and they arrested him.
They arrested him, and on X, Elon put out this thing the other day or today, I don't know when, that showed some of the policy changes at Telegram now. And so they have changed the way that they are responding to censorship inside Telegram, and they've disclosed it. And that's just happened since his arrest.
Yeah, so what I heard is the president of France invited him there. And as soon as he got there, they arrested him. And I was like, man, that's cold blood, because really what they're arresting for is free speech, I think.
I believe you're right.
Yeah, that's what I think. I don't know. So then the third one was Zuckerberg, and I probably spent 15 minutes trying to find this letter yesterday, which is like,
you can find it on the Twitter, and it is interesting.
Yeah, and so I highlighted
on X, whatever.
Yeah, X. I can't get that to he's writing it to Jim Jordan, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee of Congress, and it's dated August 26th. So the first event was August 23rd, then there was August 24th, then this was August 26th. All these things were, I think, circle around free speech is what it is about. And he said, I appreciate the committee's interest in content moderation of online platforms, which that's his terminology for censorship, right? Mm-hmm. And then down below, he says, we're about promoting speech. And what I thought was interesting, he didn't put the word free.
Yeah,
which is kind of a big deal. He's not saying he's interested in promoting free speech. Yeah. Which, okay, I see that. And then he says, which I bet most people don't realize this even happened, because I don't think this has been in the news. He says in 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content. And on this show, during all that time, I think on a weekly basis, we were showing the data and how the decision grid that was being made was not honest to the citizens of the United States.
Which was a challenge in itself, because we didn't know, like, is the data good? Like where does this data come from? And so we really had to scrub and to the best of our abilities make decisions. Right.
And now we know the data was right? But our opinion is the government knew all along, because they had the primary source. And then he says in that same paragraph, I believe the government pressure was wrong. This is Zuckerberg. Right. So that was the first thing in his letter, which when I first saw that this was on the internet, I'm like, there's no way this is real. Was that how you thought about it when you first saw it?
No, I didn't think about it that way.
I did. I was like, this can't be true. Like what he's saying here. And then the next paragraph, he says, in a separate situation, the FBI warned us about potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 election. So this was happening in 2020.
Right.
From the FBI. And so we, Meta or Facebook, temporarily demoted it. It's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation. And then he goes on and he talks about how we'll use our fact checkers. And just what I wrote down was,
I think he says he won't lean on the fact checkers.
yeah. For instance, no longer temporarily demoting things in the U.S. while waiting for the fact checkers. But what I was thinking is, how will you and I ever know what a fact is if they don't give us all the information, right? Like, so we can't even fact check if they're censoring it.
Yeah, if attorney generals can't figure this stuff out with billions and millions of dollars in their arsenal and teams. Imagine when I was reading that letter, here's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about, I actually felt sorry, a little empathy for Mark Zuckerberg.
So you and I took it differently.
And here's why. I was thinking of him as a businessman. And I was thinking, here's a guy who started a product, started an idea, smart guy, put all kinds of money and took all kinds of risks to get this thing going. Did he ever dream of having his staff, paying his staff to work for the government?
Right.
To do research against himself?
Right.
When the president of the United States is like bashing you for doing what you asked him to do? I mean, I was thinking, man, all he wanted to do was try and pick up chicks with the social media thing. And so I was like, how do you even get there? I actually felt a little bit sorry for the guy until page 2. Did you read page 2?
I did, but I dropped it, so I don't have it on here.
Yeah, page 2 just talked about his political contributions. And really, he should be free to do that. He says he's not going to do it, but you know what? He should be free to do that. He should be free to do whatever he wants.
And I told you my opinion of why he did it. My opinion was, I think he has the data of what's really going on, what people are looking for. And I think he thinks there's going to be a change in power, and he wants to kind of pave his way for that. That was my opinion.
I think that could be it. In my opinion, also, on top of that is, if there is a change in power, he doesn't want to promote that change in power.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes.
But I've never asked the guy.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we could have a cup of coffee with him one day.
That would be cool.
On August the 30th last week, Brazil's Supreme Court suspended Twitter. And all these things to me are kind of the idea that the internet originally gave us access to stuff, and now we see it's being politicized, that we may never be able to go to the internet to know what is true and what's not. Like, clearly artificial intelligence is limited by the biases of the programmers, just like a newspaper is biased by the editors, right?
So what's the antidote?
The antidote is this: we're running out of time. Solutions I came up with was, I would encourage you to consider the word truth, and does it matter? And if you can put a capital T on there, what is ultimate truth? What are the core principles that really matter?
Yeah.
And because I think if you understand, to you, what are the core principles that matter, some of the noise that's going on out there won't distract you from chasing core truth.
Your emotions won't be as quickly to flare up.
Yeah, I mean, if all the governments around the world censor everything and we don't really ever know what's going on, I'm not going to lose any sleep. I can't do anything about it. And I know ultimate truth. And so ultimate truth is what really matters to me. And that's in my faith. And so that's why I can lay my head at sleep. There's been like, the world spins, and there's been all kinds of cultures and things where truth is hidden and you have problems because of that. And we're not like immune to that. So I would encourage you, first of all, to chase after what ultimate truth is. It revolutionized my life when I started doing that. Secondly, I forgot the name of the book. I'll give you the book it's really caused me to ponder.
Do you have it there on the bottom of your summary? You wrote one.
No, I don't. It's called The Biggest, Our Biggest Fight is the name of the book, and it's written by Frank McCourt. Frank McCourt is an East Coast billionaire, and he's got a Project Liberty that he's championing. And the best I understand it is, what it does is it would put saran wrap over the top of the internet and take back your data from Google, Meta, Amazon, Twitter, everybody. It would take back your data. And what that does is it takes away the power from those entities and the government, because the governments are buying your data, they know who you are. And his project, I think he's betting his fortune on it. I think Musk bet his fortune on buying Twitter.
Yeah.
I think McCourt is betting his fortune on this Project Liberty. And I would encourage you to chase that down because it's a paradigm shift. And I think from the best I've studied on it, I think it brings hope to each of us to have some privacy and the ability to maybe find out truth on the internet again versus having it all censored out. It's a pretty crazy weekly update for you guys. All those things that happened last week really stirred my soul. I was like, man, there's a lot going on in the world that maybe monumental stuff that we may look back on and go, wait, that was kind of a crazy week, wasn't it? All right, any last words, Doug?
No, enjoy the weekend.
Hey, thanks for spending this time with us, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.